Welcome, everybody. This is James Riley, Goliath Historical Fencing, and we're here today with a fencing video review. This is a bout that was fought between Eric and Josias. Eric is um, from here in Kenosha, and Josias is from Minneapolis. He's the head instructor of Ram's Head Historical Fencing, and they got together this weekend a bunch of people got together for the Midwinter Armizare tournament in Chicago, hosted by the Chicago Swordplay Guild. Um, and after the tournament was over, they did a pickup bout, and we're going to review that bout. So we'll go exchange by exchange. We'll try and rewind frame by frame, and then maybe watch the exchange over again, although the consistency here is going to be all over the place. You'll forgive me for that. But the idea here is just to look at their fencing, look at what's happening mechanically, look at what's happening tactically, how they're fencing, how they're approaching the fight, how they're getting in on each other, those types of things. So here we go. We'll just start from the beginning. Watch the first exchange. All right. First exchange is pretty straightforward. So what happens is they enter distance, they don't enter distance, they enter the Sufeshten, right? And you can see that Josias enters in long point. As Eric closes, he gets his sword out in front of him. So he's still in the Sufeshten, he's still bringing his sword forward, but he's just not going to walk into the creek without having his sword present because Josias's point is already in his face. So Eric steps in with a cut to gain strength on Josias. Josias immediately responds by strengthening. So he says, Eric moves in to take a strong position on Josias. Josias denies that strong position by working in as his taker to strengthen. And immediately, Eric Durstfexens so that he can take on the other side because he is likewise not in a position. He doesn't want to be in the creek having his blade under Josias' control. So he moves to re-strengthen in this case. And Josias actually, he's late on this. He's trying to thrust in Des the Durstfexen, but he's late getting it going. So let's just watch that again. So Josias enters in long point. Eric moves in to take a strong position on Josias' blade. Josias denies it by moving his blade to his left. Eric Durstfexens and then moves to strengthen again. This time, instead of trying to re-strengthen on Eric's blade, Josias attempts to work in as the Durstfexen to thrust. You can see he's late getting it started. So if Josias wanted to thrust in as the Durstfexen, what he should have done was as soon as he saw Eric's point start to dip, his arms should have been extending forward, right? So you can see his elbows are the same distance from his torso that they started. So by the time Eric gets his Durstfexen off, now he's taken a strong position. Now it's a very easy thing for him to do to mitigate Josias' thrust because he hasn't started it yet. You see his elbows are still next to his torso. He hasn't started it yet. So as Josias moves to bring his sword forward, Eric can just take and plow very easily. Now, if he would have, so this isn't really taking and plow, this is more taking in long point. If he would have taken and plowed by bringing his elbows into his torso, then he could have just extended his elbows very quickly and catch Josias before he hangs. So Josias is looking to hang here to defend against his thrust, and because Eric's arms are fully extended, he's not able to get his offensive action off. So you can see he's starting to turn his torso, but his sword isn't going anywhere. So if he's still kind of moving into the plow position. If he would have been earlier moving into the plow position, he could have been extending his arms forward instead of essentially withdrawing his arms, because as he's rotating his torso, his arms are coming slightly back away from Josias. If he would have been extending in this moment, he would have caught him, but he doesn't. And so when he does go, and again, he's bringing his body forward. He should not be bringing his body forward here. He should have just clipped Josias on the head with the short edge without moving his body forward. He could have rotated the hip, that would have been fine, but instead of withdrawing the arms and then moving the body in, he should have just extended the arms from his torso with a short edge cut, and starts how Josias from the upper right to Josias's upper left. And because he doesn't do this correctly, Josias is able to get the hanging off, and then from there, he's successfully taken his turn back. So he's successfully mitigated Eric's Indes action, and so now Josias can take the vor. So he's no longer working Indes here. He's just taking the vor. He's seizing the vor, and he hits with the spheric to the shoulder. Move to the next one. So this one is really nice. We have, again, same sort of jockeying for position. So these fencers are from the same school of fencing. They have a similar system, and so they're playing the same game. So Eric is here. He's looking for position. He strengthens. Josias denies his strengthening by Durchwechseln. Eric works in as the Durchwechseln to take on the other side. Now Josias, instead of moving, he sees that if my Durchwechselns are not working, I'm not ending up at the center. And so instead of that, right, because Eric is so sensitive that he's able to mitigate the Durchwechseln, that means he's not sufficiently strong to deny Josias from strengthening. And so Josias strengthens in this case. Eric pushes him aside. Oh, let's go back and see. Oh, so Josias Durchwechselns here. So he Durchwechselns again. I was wrong. Eric, and of course Eric is able to strengthen. Josias threatens the Durchwechseln here. Eric strengthens again. So really, okay, Josias is looking to Durchwechseln here, and then try and get his thrust in. So I want to just talk about why this doesn't work for Josias. So Eric has a strong position, right? So every time Josias Durchwechselns, Eric is able to get his sword on top of get the inside position, make it so that Josias has to continue with weakening actions, either offensively or defensively. And so he Durchwechselns again. Eric can very easily retake with a strengthening. So he's just frequency modus, maintaining inside position. He'll never let Josias come to blows. Josias again threatens the Durchwechseln. It's very easy for Eric to take here again because he had inside position. He's starting strong, and Josias is taking the vor. That means it's very easy for Eric to work Indes Josias's weak vor action. So again, Eric is strong. Josias moves with the Durchwechseln to, in this case, he's looking to hit. So he Durchwechselns. All of this is good. And watch how his arms move forward before his center of mass moves forward, right? So Josias' center of mass, you can see his center of mass is right here. So it's kind of like right here. And I'll just put my mouse there to look. So this is where Josias' center of mass is. And then we'll go frame by frame. You see how his arms extend. He moves forward slightly with the body, but his sword is like way, way further forward. And then we continue. Look, his center of mass is still like right here, and his arms are at full extension, right? So that's what it means when we say sword moves first. That being said, he was behind Eric with all of those actions. He never really got Eric to overcommit, and so because of that, because Eric maintained frequency modus strength the entire time, when Josias goes for his hitter, Eric is able to respond by pulling distance and getting into, in this case, what's a long point, and backing up at a distance. And then as soon as he deflects Josias's point, right? So this is really important. As soon as he deflects Josias's point, you can see Josias's thrust is no longer a threat. And Josias knows it too. He's like, okay, that didn't work. But because Josias brought himself into distance, committing on the thrust, Eric moves back at the long point, and then he's able to just strike Josias in the mask. Once he has strong position, Josias brings his body forward. He's just going to run onto Eric's point again. So we'll just go back. Watch that from the beginning. All right. So the next one here, we'll look here. So it looks like Eric is going to, so they're in the Sufeshten. Eric is going to begin with some kind of provocation. Well, it looks like he's provoking a left tag. Let's watch the whole exchange. All right, there's a lot going on in that exchange. So let's back it up here. Okay, so we begin. We're in the Sufeshten. Josias is strong. Uh, Eric decides that he wants to get motion in his sword. So this is the appropriate way to deal with this, right? We're not going to try and work Indez Josias's frequency modus. We're going to try and disrupt the rhythm by feinting. So threatening an attack to cause motion, and that'll give us an ability to enter. So as you can see, Eric begins by threatening this provocation, and he gets motion from Josias, but Josias does the right thing by moving his center of mass back, right? So you can see here, as soon as he feels like, okay, this Eric is starting an offensive sequence, he's moving his center of mass from in the center to just over this foot. What that's going to do is make this foot light, so if Eric did decide to move in, Josias can back up very, very easily, right? So he threatens that. He sees, and you can see Josias is already off of that foot, so he's making sure that he's not in any danger of being chased down by Eric starting this offensive sequence. All right, Eric sees that Josias moves back and recognizes that it would be he would be in the same position that Josias was in the last exchange if he kept chasing. So he just resets. So now they're back in the Sufeshten. Josias moves, or Eric moves forward a little bit. Josias backs up a little bit. They're fighting over position. So here, so this is actually interesting. So Josias is strong. Eric strengthens. Josias works Indez to the strengthening. So Josias started strong. Eric strengthened. Josias worked Indez the strengthening. And then Eric tried to work Indez Josias's Indez action, which is the Durstwechseln. But Josias is actually really, really good here because he recognizes the Eric's Durstwechseln. He recognizes Eric's Durstwechseln, and he immediately he recognizes that as a weakening action, and he immediately sets upon, right? Again, sword moves first, beautiful. Really, the only reason that Eric survives this exchange has nothing to do with what he did. Rather, it's because Josias was aiming his point too low, or too high, rather. So he's aiming his point over Eric's mask. If he would have been aiming, now he's doing this because he doesn't want to thrust through the strong of Eric's sword, right? So if he was aiming at the chest, it would be a very easy thing for Eric to do, to just wind into plow, pull his strong out to his left side, and deflect the thrust. So Josias knows that, and so he's aiming his thrust towards the top of the head. Now, what he might have done instead, right, and because of that, he misses the thrust. We'll see that here in a second. What he might have done instead, as soon as he sees Eric's blade moving backwards, so he starts extending, he sees Eric's blade moving backwards. Eric's blade is moving backwards so that he can get advantage back. He doesn't end up point on cross, which would ensure the thrust, right? He's trying to get his blade back, and those are moments for duplirin. But Josias is not wrong to think he might be able to hit this thrust. His aim was just a little off, right? So you can see his point is here. And Eric is, I don't know if he did it on purpose or not, but he ducks the point. So now the point is here. Josias misses his thrust purely based on happenstance, right? Eric is in this, he looks like he was going for a tag. He thought it was on the other side of the sword. He ends up running into Josias' cross. Josias would have hit him here, right? But he misses, again, not because of anything that Eric did necessarily. is just because he was aiming a little too high. But other than that, the mechanics of the thrust were really, really good. The timing of the thrust was really, really good. Uh, he would have ensured the header if he would have duplirin instead of tried to finish the thrust. But you can see here, we're bound on strong on strong. And my favorite part of all of these exchanges is anytime people back up safely, right? So they're strong on strong. Eric is like, I fucked that up, and so I need to get out of here. So he backs the hell out, and they're able to reset the Sufetchkins. And now we're back in this position fighting over strength. Josias looks like he's in a strong position now. Eric strengthens. And then this is kind of good. So this is fun. Eric strengthens. I don't know if he was feeling pressure from Josias. It doesn't look like he was. It looked like Josias's intention was to Durst-Vexen against the strengthening take on the other side. But Eric doesn't even give him a chance, right? He moves, he strengthens, draws a response from Josias, and then immediately targets an opening here. So you can see, yeah, so this is good. Eric strengthens on Josias' sword, gets motion, and then he targets the lower opening. Now, Josias pulls his body out of distance so the cut whiffs. What Josias should have done in this moment was move to plow. It would have been very hard, though, because his mental stack was kind of consumed. His bandwidth was being consumed by the pressure that Eric put on his sword before he threw this cut. So that was really clever fencing on Eric's part. Just overload their stimuli so that they're behind in terms of their reaction speed. Again, anytime someone is targeting at the hands, it's always best to withdraw your sword to that side, strengthen your point, take in the plow on that side, and then you can immediately take back your offense. But it doesn't really matter here. The cut whiffs, and Josias backs out of range, and now we're back to the center. Now Eric goes again. He is really making Josias think like, okay, I have to worry about that right side. He started with the provoker to that right side, and then the exchange played out the way it was, and then he immediately comes in, this time with a provoker of strength, and then he throws a hitter to that right side. And so now, that cut whiffed, but I'm like, okay, I'm watching for that right side. And Eric comes in, and he threatens the right side again. And as Josias responds to it, and you can see his point is starting to drift off here. You can see his point is starting to drift off. So as Josias responds to it, and it would have been even better for Eric if Josias did move into right plow in this case. But as Josias responds to it, Eric moves in to strengthen and get in on Josias in the Krieg with a strong position. Right, so you can see now, he is strong in the Krieg, and this is just it's whatever Eric wants at this point. He has lots of different chasers. He could extend, potentially thrust through the weak, so the line of Eric's shoulder through the weak right to his mask, that's there for him. Josias seems to be raising his arms. There's a good chance there's a tag underneath the arms for him. His point is free, so he might even be able to mutate depending on how Josias handles it. Either way, he's definitely winning this offensive sequence. So he goes for the thrust. He's a little late getting the thrust going, but that's okay. Josias starts to raise his arms. He's still in line for chase. So here, I am looking to cut right underneath the Armizare and back out. That's the way that I'm going to treat that. But it doesn't matter. Josias gets his strong parry off, and then Eric starts to cut around, which is really good. He's still working Endez, and now Josias gets the plow. So this is why I would have gone for that tag, because it was too easy for Josias to get the plow here, with the big cut around. My cut arounds, there are very specific moments where I reserve those cut arounds for. But in any case, Josias takes in plow. Now, because Eric had the vor, Josias took in plow, Eric recognizes, okay, he is taken against my committed hitter. I no longer have the vor, right? So he didn't work Endez, so I didn't get burned. That being said, my turn is over. It's time for me to back out. And he also knows what Josias wants to do from here. So if he had actually landed on Josias' cross, and Josias got his, actually, let me see. you can see how Josias is kind of leaning back here in this case. Um, if he had gotten it on the cross, he could have immediately thrusted Eric in the face. But because he's leaning back and he doesn't collect on the cross, and Eric is pulling his sword back to the middle, as he goes for the thrust, Eric is able to deflect and get into his own plow. And now that Eric is in his own plow, Josias commits on the thrust, and you can see, boom, thrust right to the chest. Because as soon as Josias's thrust is taken in plow, Eric can retake his offense, and he is inside position, and it's a clear shot to the target. And he just... So we'll just rewind that, watch the whole thing again. All right, watch this next exchange again. So he's, haha. All right, so this is a lot of the same things happen in this exchange. This happens a lot at sort of more intermediate level fencers. Um, they'll perform a sort of sequence and entry, and they'll have a lot of success for it. And it's sort of like it sort of becomes a sequence that they can reliably work from and find success with, and so they'll repeat it. Now, at a higher level, that's really, really dangerous because as soon as someone recognizes that that's a pattern of yours, then they're going to be very cognizant of when you're repeating the same type of pattern, and that's the way that they can lure you into a mistake or sort of capitalizing on the fact that they know what you're going to do next. Um, but this stage, it's not bad, and in about a free play where the stakes are pretty low, it's good to get the reps in the sequence, right? Make sure that you're comfortable in that sequence, and if you do it once, you find success, you do it again, you'll be fine. So we're gonna go back to it and see how it plays out this time. Here we go. So we begin. Josias moves to strengthen. Eric immediately. So this is one thing that I'm going to pick on Eric here for. He's moving his body forward as he's threatening the tag. Now he's still in the Sufeshtin. Josias is really, really quick to catch moments of weakening and opportunities to shoot to set his offense in those moments of weakening. So at this range, it might be good, it might be bad for Eric to be throwing that cut, bringing his body forward. Josias may well be able to take moments, like obviously if he was closer, so if that foot was here and he did that kind of action where he's bringing his body forward and bringing his blade back, Josias would have easily set upon him. We've seen him do it 100 times. We know that he can do it. But at this range, it might be okay, it might not be okay, but I'm not sure that Eric really knows what distance he's playing at right now, and whether or not that's safe. So I would just say, in general, let's try and keep the sword moving first. Don't bring your body forward until there's forward motion in the sword. So you can see how his sword is moving back, his body's moving forward. Again, he's still kind of in the Sufeshtin. If he was doing that as a provocation to try and get Josias to set upon, and then to take and then start his offense that way, that might have been better. But I'm not sure that's what he was doing. In any case, he threatens the cut to the right. Josias backs up, and now he's looking to Durstfexen and take on the other side. He takes Josias, Durstfexen's Indes, and now Josias is looking to set upon. And again, like I said, Josias is very, very, very quick to find those moments of weakening where he's able to set his strike and start his offense. In this case, Eric again pulls arms back, crosses, and it might not have been safe. So Josias has a very strong thrust. It might not be safe to tag the hands in this moment. And so I can see why he just kept his sword there, pulled distance. What Josias should be doing in this case is working Indes. You can see how Eric's hands are actually pretty low. So He might have had a duplier in here. He might be able to cut around and then start, and build off of his offense that way. Um, Eric does a good job pulling distance, and Josias just says, okay, he deflected the thrust. I'm going to give him back his turn. I'm just going to come back to a strong position, uh, and I'm just going to give him back his turn. Eric, for his part, he's smart. He's thinking, okay, there's a cut around coming, right? So I just defeated the strike. It was a strong thrust, so I can't let go and tag the hands. So that means when he weakens, I need to be wary that he might be cutting around to my lower opening here. And so he moves to plow, and I like what he's doing here. That was probably a safe bet. But Josias is actually, he makes the right call by not cutting around, because he would have collected on Eric's cross, and Eric would have been able to take his offense back. So now we're back to square one. Again, throwing the cut. Again, the cut whiffs. Those cuts are really, really important, not only to consume some bandwidth, right? Make it so that Josias can't prosecute his own game. He has to worry about being reactive, which is a perfectly fine fencing style to be reactive. But if you're looking to take your offense, which you've seen multiple times, Josias is looking to find moments of weakening where he can shoot his point. And in those situations, it's really useful to just attack the opening. So again, because the cut whiffs, Josias is looking to take back his offense, and he extends his arms. And again, Eric, because he didn't commit the body, he's able to pull back. So Josias is looking for these opportunities where his opponent commits an action and weakens, and therefore Josias is able to retake his offense with shooting the point and setting his strike. And so he does that. And now, so he withdraws his blade here. So this is interesting. So Josias goes in, he's looking for the thrust. Eric backs up, gets his strong in front of the thrust, and you can see Josias's blades start coming up and back, right? So you see his point going closer to Josias's body. And what we do in those situations, we always target the hands, right? We need their point forward. We need their point closer to us than it is to them, right? Which is to say, if Josias's hands are here, a 45-degree angle, right, it's the same distance from us and them. Anything less than a 45-degree angle, so if his sword is basically going vertical, it's closer to Josias. If his sword is going horizontal, it's closer to Eric. And if it's closer to Eric, Eric can dominate the blade. And if it's not closer to Eric, Eric cannot dominate the blade. And that is a really dangerous situation for Eric to be in, right? As soon as Josias pulls his blade back, it's very hard for Eric to take deep targets because Josias crosses 2 inches from any line of attack. And then also, it's hard for him to predict Josias feints changing lines and be able to take a strong position on his invariable attack. So what do we do in those situations? We see their blade point go back towards them. We immediately target the hands. We always do that. And you can see that's what Eric is trying to do here. Now he hits the cross or he misses, it doesn't matter, right? But the point is Eric is looking to he's not even looking to hit in these cases. And that's also true about the tag hitters in the beginning. In those cases, he's looking to create motion. In these cases, he's looking to get that blade forward. Hey, don't just sit there with your blade back. That's not okay. Josias sees that and he says, okay, I will bring my blade forward. I will respect your threat. I'm not going to just allow you to target the hands whenever you want. And so now we're fighting over position again. Eric strengthens and steps in behind his strengthening, which is really, really good. Josias Durstvaxens against it to try and take on the other side. Eric responds by taking on the other side. Josias responds by taking on the other side. And now we're looking for a thrust index, right? So again, these sort of Durstvaxen games are never really going to work because Eric started strong. Right? So because Eric started strong, he's always ahead. Eric starts strong, Josias Durstvaxens, Eric works index. Josias, uh, it, because Eric worked Indes, he was complete by the time Josias starts his next weakening action. And now he moves to thrust, and Eric does. So again, what Eric should have done here was taken in plow. He just jumped the gun just a little early. I mean, he deflected the thrust, so since he deflected the thrust, if he wanted, he could have immediately plunged. So like you can see how Josias's point is high, his hands are low. He could have immediately done a plunge cut. So he struck short edge cut to the top of Josias's head and ox. And he kind of tries to go for that, but he's late. And that's how Josias is able to get his cross up. So what he should have done was he should have just lifted to, so just kind of crossed the short edge and then threw his pommel underneath his left, left hand holding the pommel underneath his right arm, cross his arms, and then hit a plunge cut to the head. Again, he tries that, but he's late. So he's here. He should be doing it now, and then he would hit the short edge cut. Because he's late, Josias is able to get the cron up. Now, Josias goes to cron because he knows that he is in trouble, right? So he's trying, he's no longer working in the vor, he's working in the knock. He sees that, okay, my vor thrust fails. Eric doesn't work Indes, so that is okay. Eric takes the vor back, so now, because he's strong, now it's his turn, so he takes the vor back, and Josias works in the knock to get the cron parry to defend against that short edge cut to the head. Eric, this is one of the best moves that Eric does in this match. Eric works Indes now, the cron parry to cut to the hands. And so you can see he hits cut to the hands, Indes the cron parry, actually at this point Indes the cut around, right? And so he's able to keep his turn. He's able to finish his attack before Josias is able to get his offense going again, right? And then he backs up. Beautiful attitude, great fencing here. So let's just watch that whole exchange again. All right, let's watch this now. Let's look at that again. I'm not actually clear on what happened here, but let's just walk through the exchange such as it is. So we come in looking for position. We're in the Sufechten. Josias strengthens. Eric Zuckens does the strengthening. And now he's moving. So he's moving to thrust from his Zucken to get his offense going. Josias sees that. What he should be doing is parrying and plow at this point on his right side and then watching for Eric to cut around. Instead, he goes to cron. So here, what Eric should be doing is the same thing he did last time, is cut to the arms. Oh, that's that's the one that we already watched. That's why it's the same. So here we go. So they're fighting for position. In this case, Josias strengthens. Eric. Oh, what is Eric? It looks like Eric is. Josias is on the. They're bound on the outside. So they're bound right on right as opposed to left on left, which is the more common bind. And then Eric looks to strengthen, and Josias works into as a strengthening here. So he Durchwechselns against the strengthening. Now, what Josias should be doing in this case is setting up on, and he goes, and Eric is able to perceive that. I wonder if the sword move first wasn't there this time. I feel like if he had done a shooting step with a back foot, so if Josias actually sheathened with bring his right hip forward, bring his sword forward, right hip, and then bringing the rear foot forward, he might have been able to hit this thrust. But in any case, he does the right thing. He shoots the point. Eric is able to deflect the action because he's a little late. Yeah. So he does. So Josias ends up going with the back foot here. Right? You can see how Josias goes with the back foot, but he does it after this step. And if he would have just extended his arms and shot with the back foot immediately, then this would have landed earlier and he might have been able to hit him. But he doesn't do that. I'm glad that he is looking to press his offense here. Eric deflects the action, and now Josias strengthens again. He knows, like, man, this guy's gonna cut underneath my arms, or he's gonna do something. I gotta get my sword back in front of me. Yeah, he's going. In this case, it looks like he was going to potentially cut underneath the arms, but Josias kept bind pressure the whole time. Right, this is really, really great fencing here. So now it's Josias' turn to tag the arms, and Eric recognizes that. So he's like, "Oh no, I gotta get my sword back down." And he does. Now I'm not sure if he meant to hit here. He shouldn't have. I would have, if Josias would have tagged short edge underneath the arms here. So if he would have done a spheric to the belly, then he would have actually. Eric didn't do enough to mitigate that, and you can see how his hand is still high and he's moving everything out of the way. If he would have done a short edge cut to the belly, his hands would be here, his cross would be right in the way of this action. So this is not the best fencing on Eric's part. If Josias would have immediately, as soon as he saw the arms come up, short edge cut to the belly, he wins this exchange without getting any afterblow or double or anything like that. But he doesn't, and Eric doesn't do a good job. So he comes in. Now we're in Kron. This is just a mess. And I think what ends up happening is he takes in Kron. Josias takes in Kron. But because this is so wonky, everything kind of got out of control here. We don't even know what's going on. This hitter just lands. I'm not really thinking about that too much. All right. So we're into Sioux Fechten. Eric begins by threatening a position of strength. Josias responds by strengthening. Eric doesn't commit his body, so he's not in any danger. He can take his time. He zookins, and this time you can see, so this zookin is way better. You can see his center of mass. We can look back at that zookin the last time. His center of mass is right here, so I'll put my cursor here. He zookins. His center of mass has not moved. Look, his center of mass is right where the cursor is, right? And so now he's bringing his point forward. He's going for the crossed arm thrust. And Josias, instead of going to plow, he goes to Kron. Either way, cut around. So that actually works. What Eric should have done was saw the Kron, and he could have either cut Shield to get over the Kron, or he could have cut tag to the belly, or even a long edge cut to the arms. Would have won him the point. And when Josias goes to Kron, Josias gets his strong in front of the action. So Josias is still, like, his point is up, and he didn't collect on the cross. Eric just bounced off the strong, and so it's still Josias still isn't really in an opportune place to take his turn back. That being said, Eric did commit the strike. He did hit the strong, so Eric knows, okay, I'm done. My turn is over. Now it's time for me to defend. Now, what strike should Josias go for on Eric? If he was working Endez, then he could have been able to tag to the belly already. But because he's taking his turn back, he won't be able to hit here. But that is the correct action to go for. So he threatens the short edge strike. So that's the short edge strike to the belly, by the way, that I'm talking about. And Eric is able to get his strong in front of it. So that's really, really important to know. When is it my turn to take my offense? When is it my turn to be in the four? When is it my turn to be in the knock and defend myself? The moral of the story is, I'm either strong or working Indes. If I can be stronger working Indes, then it's safe for me to take my offense. If I'm weak and not working Indes, right? So in other words, right here, right? So he's weak and not working Indes. He knows it is no longer his turn, right? It's no longer his turn to attack. It's his turn to defend. Josias knows it's my turn to attack, right? Why? So you can see, even though his point is not strong, where the bind is, you can see how Eric makes contact right here. So this is all strong, right? One straight line, even though Josias' structure is pointed backwards. That's okay. We're not going to pick on him too bad for that. It is his turn. They know it's his turn. So he goes for the short strike to the belly. Eric recognizes it. Now we're back in familiar territory. He defends against the short strike to the belly and backs up out of range. And, you know, Josias might have struck around here as soon as he saw that happen. He could have schnappened against that, right? Or he could have just cut around. He decides to strengthen. He just says, you know what, I'm gonna work from a position that's safe to me and allow him to get back up. We're in this Ufeshtin. So this is really good stuff here. Eric's point is down. They're in the Ufeshtin. Eric's point is down. So Josias is here. He walks into the Ufeshtin. He sees Eric's point is down. What does he do? Points at the hands. You never let someone get that close to you without doing something about their sword. If they're not giving you their sword, you target the hands. I cannot stress that enough. What that's going to do is it's going to make it so whatever Eric wants to do from that position is very, very difficult for you not to be able to respond to. As soon as he chooses a side, all you have to do is redirect your point to that side. But as long as his point is not in the space in which your sword can control it, you've got to do something else. And so Josias does the right thing here by saying, no, get your point up. We're not going to play this game. I'm not going to sit here and get put in a spin cycle by you not having your blade within the space that my blade can control. And Eric recognized that. He says, no, okay, you know, so this is just such great fencing, right? It's like Eric comes in low. Josias doesn't waste any time. He says, no, get it up here. And Eric says, okay, I will oblige, right? I'm not going to sit there low with you pointing at my hands like that. And so now we're back to familiar territory. We're fighting over position. Josias moves to strengthen. Eric works Indes. Josias strengthens again. Eric works Indes again with the Durstfexen. Josias strengthens, and Eric throws a cut again. So I got to stress again, this is such great fencing. It's like, I'm going to overload your stimuli, right? I'm going to create motion. I have to make you respect my feints, so I'm going to commit to strikes on that side, right? So you see, as soon as he sees Josias go to strengthen, so here we go. So Josias points at the arms. Eric moves to strengthen. Josias Durstfexens. Eric strengthens. Josias strengthens. Eric Durstfexens. Josias strengthens. Eric Durstfexens. Josias strengthens, and then Eric throws a cut, and Josias backs out. Right? This is really, really great fencing here. Right? So we're back in the Ufeshtin, fighting over position. Again, he threatens a cut. This time, Josias has to respect it, and then that's Eric's entry, right? So this is really, really great stuff here. So Eric is not entering distance in a weak way. He's only entering either strong or or within motion. Most of the time for Eric, it's in motion that he creates. Often, Josias will enter in motion that Eric creates, and neither of them are letting their opponent be strong. And so really motion is the only option for these guys most of the time, right? So he enters with his thrust. Josias recognizes it's not his turn. He backs up and he takes a strong position. Now, so in this case, Eric's point is low, but Josias is saying, you know, I think we're in the Krieg. I don't think we're in the Ufeshtin. So now if Eric's point is low in the Ufeshtin, you have to point at his hand so that you can make sure that you can reliably predict where his blade's going to go and respond to it. But if you're in the Krieg and your point's low, well, then you just shoot. And so that's what Josias looks to do here. He looks to shoot, and it looks like he just missed. So you can see Josias' sense of the creek is pretty dialed in. Like he's so close to knowing exactly when he's in the creek. Um, Eric sees this. He sees the thrust. He's not in the creek. He's still in the succession. So it works out for both of them, right? So Josias is able to enter under motion. He's not exactly clear of what the deal is. Eric is not exactly clear what the deal is, but he sees Josias' thrust and he's able, just able, right? So close, like it might be an inch away. Uh, he's able to deflect the thrust and not get hit. Now, if I were Eric in this situation, I've deflected the thrust. As soon as the thrust doesn't land, I'm immediately coming off and tagging underneath the arms of this thrust, um, and backing out. Right? Eric is not comfortable letting go of the blade yet. He doesn't really trust the fact that he deflected the thrust. He doesn't know if Josias is going to come in again. And now Josias looks to duplier in this case. So this is interesting. So Josias sets, Eric deflects, and then Josias wants to chase. Now you can only chase Indes. You cannot chase after your offensive action is completed. But that's what Josias tries to do. So you can see at this point his thrust is completed. It failed, and so any offensive action he takes again is him restarting the vor. So if he was chasing here, so if he extended his arms, saw that Eric made the parry, he could have duplied into the face, and it would have been perfectly safe and a perfectly well executed attack. But because he finishes the thrust and then he goes for the duplier, now Eric can retake a strong position. And so in this case, what Eric should do is thrust. He should be parrying in plow. He should be thrusting Josias in the face. I'm not sure if he gets it. He doesn't get it off. And that's just really the reason he doesn't get it off is because he doesn't lift his hands. So he should be thrusting a short edge cut from above, right? So thrusting down from above or hitting a short edge cut from above would have hit. He's trying to thrust from plow, which is going through Josias' cross and giving him an opportunity to get the action off, right? And so he's just trying to take his offense back. So he's trying to work into his Josias parry. So he moves to thrust. He doesn't lift his arm, so Josias is able to get a strong in front of the weak. Again, if Eric wanted to chase here, he should have doubled in this case. So if he did a duplier, he could have got behind Josias' sword and hit with duplier, but he misses that, and now he's just trying to keep up his offense. And this is good. It's still his turn because he's still working into Josias' parry. Josias gets to plow in this case, and he moves to cut around early, it looks like. So what Josias should do is extend his arms forward, threatening that short edge cut to Eric's head, and then Eric would have been forced to lift his hilt, and he would have been late getting to the parry. But because Josias moves right to the cut around, Eric is already on that side, and they have to reset the success. Looks like Eric thought there was a tag there for a second. He was late. And we're back in the Sufeston. Again, I can't stress enough how important those tags to the hands are. I'd like to see Eric throw more tags to Josias' left side. So you can see now what's been happening typically is the way that Josias has been defending against those tags is coming into plow on his left and then using space to defend against his right. Now that Josias is starting to move his sword over to the right, it would be better for Eric to feint left, or feint a cut from his left to Josias' right, and then throw a tag to the Josias' left arm on from his right, and then that would just make the mental stack that much tougher for Josias to do it. But you can see they're both fighting for position again. Eric strengthens, Josias strengthens. This is safe because they're in this fashion, so no one can really do something from here. Fighting for these positions are perfectly good. Now, Josias moves to strengthen. Eric strengthens Indes and moves his body forward. So now we're starting to commit distance a little bit. Josias backs up. He recognizes, like, if I let him get strong now and that close, I won't be able to flee the bind safely anymore. And so he strengthens. Eric Durstfexen strengthens. Now we're just doing this game again. And this time, Eric jumps the gun. So Eric tries to do again what he did the first time. What he should have been doing is expecting the Durstfexen and winding right into right plow here. But he doesn't, and he's late getting to right plow. So, and he's also lifting his hands. It would have been better if right here he just left his hands where they were, strengthened his point by pointing over Josias's left shoulder, and then leaving his hands where they were, and then bringing his body in behind his hands. But because he lifts his hands, he kind of loses the position here. And now Josias, again, the moment of weakening, I'm not wasting any time. I'm going to look for this thrust. Eric is able to get the parry off, and he tries to get into plow. It's a little wonky. He deflects too much with the short edge, and his point ends up going super wide. So his point is like up here somewhere. But you can see he's trying to get into plow. He's like, no, I know I'm supposed. This elbow needs to be further down, right? So what he would have wanted to do is just suck his elbows into his torso, get his elbow further down. That would have given him a strong position. Instead, he doesn't get it. We're back to Sufection. Again, targeting those hand cuts, and so this time he hits them. So again, these cuts are never meant to hit. They're either they're used as keep away tools. They're used as ways of creating motion, right? And they're used to heighten the amount of bandwidth consumed by your training partner or your opponent's reaction. So, okay, so here we go. Actually, let's watch the whole sequence again. So this is we're in slow motion here, going backwards. We're just going backwards, guys. It looks like it's actually happening, but here we go. All right. Nice. All right. So this is good. So let's go look at that. Let's look at what just happened there. So Josias has got a strong position. They're in the creek. What does Josias do? Sword moves first. This is the action that I was looking for before, right? You can see he doesn't take a step with this foot. As soon as his arms are extended, this foot comes off the ground, and he's looking to Shisen. Now, Eric deflects. Really, you know what? Josias could have finished that thrust. He was totally strong. He was totally able to finish the thrust. Eric moves to long point. Long point against a strong thrust is not going to work. You have to withdraw your arms to plow in order to reliably defeat it. That being said, Eric does back up. So if you're going to use long point, backing up is the safe way to do it. But he's super vulnerable here, and yeah, he's late getting to the plow. So if he could have just gotten to that plow a little earlier, it would have been way better. Now this is good. So let's look at what happens here. This is a read. So what happened was when Josias struck that first Shisen, so he got a strong position. He was in the creek. He bailed on his thrust a little bit, or he overcommitted the thrust to his left side. Really, is what happened. He didn't bail on it. If he would have just shot straight through, he probably would have gone through Eric's weak and beat him. But in any case, he recognized, like, okay, he's parrying in long point. He's not parrying in plow. So the thing about parrying in plow is that not only is it structurally stronger, but it also um, or structurally stronger, closer, we'll say. Long point is plenty structurally fine as long as you're at a distance where you combine kind of middle on middle. But as soon as you're closer to that, or like weak on middle, we might say, as soon as you're closer than that, long point loses its effectiveness and it loses its speed. Moving to plow is much stronger. But also, plow protects the line of the shoulder, right? So if I can deflect a thrust in long point, as long as if we're in long point and I'm deflecting, I get my sword bound middle on middle, right? I get your point past the line of the shoulder. I'm pretty safe to take back my offense. But if we're bound strong on middle, which means we're well into the Krieg at this point. If I'm not protecting the line of the shoulder, then I'm vulnerable to duplirin. Now, typically, I like duplirin from a little bit safer of a setup, but Josias recognizes like, okay, hey, Eric is actually he's pairing a long point, so he's leaving himself open for the duplirin. So I'm just going to take it. So he sets the exact same action up. He gets a strong position. I want to stress again. All right, so he brings his arm forward, and then as soon as he feels the parry come, he cuts Duplair into the face, right? So that's really, really, really smart fencing on Josias' part. There's a little bit of risk involved in this, and there are times where the Duplair is way, way less riskier than this. Really, the bottom line is the reason that there's risk involved is because if Eric wanted to keep his point forward here, so if he wasn't actually deflecting, if he wasn't deflecting long point, you committed on the Duplaren, you could get stabbed in the face and end up doubling, right? But he sort of read that Eric is going to respond to my setting upon by going a long point. This is a safe Duplaren, and so it's an easy attack for me to make. And that was a smart read on his part in this moment. The question of whether or not this is the kind of way you would employ that tactically safely, generally, that's an open question. At this level, I'm perfectly happy with that type of decision making. This bout has been going on for a while, and they respect each other's offense, and so it's safe to do those types of attacks. So this is good. So Josias didn't hit there. He said nice just because he's like, man, this guy's defense is rock solid. Let's look at what happens here. This is probably my favorite exchange in the whole thing here. All right, so we start Sufesten, fighting for position. Josias' sword is low. Eric is pointing at the hands. Josias brings his sword high. Eric says, okay, it's time to play the game. So now we're going to control each other's sword. Eric strengthens. Josias moves to strengthen. Eric feints. Josias withdraws. Eric looks to in that withdrawal, right? He looks to take that motion as an opportunity to get a strong position. Josias gets put in a little bit of a spin cycle here, but Eric is not sure that he's ready to commit on anything just because it looks too unfamiliar to him. So now we're back in the same situation. Now this time, Josias feints. A little bit too much commitment of the body, right? He's sort of committed. If you look at the feint that Eric did when he was entering versus the feint that Josias did, you can see how Josias commits the body a little bit more than I would like, but that's okay. You can see though how he's having a hard time getting in now. It's not as safe as it was for Eric, and he doesn't find himself in that strong position where he's able to prosecute his offense, right? So let's look at that. So Josias feints, he sees it. Eric backs up just the same way as Josias did. Josias commits on the action. And Eric, so this is funny. Eric could be taking back his offense right now. And what he should be doing as soon as Josias recognizes, he's like, oh my God, I gotta get to a hanging pair. I gotta get to Kron to make sure that he can't, because he's gonna short his cut me to the head, or potentially thrust me in the face. So he starts lifting his hilt. Eric should be tagging underneath the arms in this case. And all of this is because in the feint, Josias' body starts moving forward. Right? So if instead Josias waited to move forward after he feinted, after he pulled Eric to that side, he could have gotten a strong position and moved his body this way towards Eric's sword. And then he could have prosecuted his offense safely the way that he's been doing. But he comes in, he strengthens, or excuse me, he strikes into Eric's cross, and now he's in trouble. Eric doesn't take his turn back. Josias is in this hanging parry, so now it's Josias' turn again. And what does Josias do? He strikes around. And what does Eric do? He comes to plow. He defends against that cut to that side, right? And he's got good, strong structure. And if he would have gone now, he could have mute-tiered right over Josias' point, or a short-edge cut to the face, or any kind of, short-edge thrust from above to the face. Right? And Josias backs out, and, he's super impressed with that. So we'll watch the exchange again. Aha! So, okay, so let's look at that. That's pretty funny. So, they're in the Sufeshtin. They say, okay, I can't get a strong position on this guy. I have to create motion. So it was before that. Hold on, I'll go back. So they're here. So I can't get a strong position on this guy. I have to create motion. So they both go to feint at the exact same time. But because they're both fencing with feeling, they're both listening to each other, neither of them just execute their string, right? They see each other's feint, they back up, they say, oh, wow, what is going on here, right? I have to back up. And then Eric is the one who recognizes what happened first, and he says, wait, his point is high. His point is closer to him than it is to me. So Eric takes his turn. So he goes for that. And Josias, again, just withdraws distance because they're playing at a safe distance, because that's where you throw those feints. You throw those feints from a safe distance, right? If you throw those feints from in the Krieg, then you end up getting hit as your feint, right? And Josias, again, throwing the feint, he's bringing his body forward. So I'd just like to see him relax on the motion of the body during those feints a little bit more. But this time he hits. Right, so it works out okay for him. So we'll just, that's it. So this is just textbook Bleiben. He feels Josias is strengthening. Maybe if he would have brought his arms forward first, he feels Eric strengthening. If he would have brought his arms forward first, Eric would have strengthened a little bit more, and that may have made this Bleiben safer. But he goes for the strike on the other side. Eric works Indes, the feint, to try and collect on his right, Josias' left, and Josias brings it right back down the center and throws the Bleiben to the face over there. So it's really good stuff here. So here we have another instance. So now Eric is bringing his body forward. He's strengthening. So he had a strong position. That was fine. Josias recognizes, okay, I have to back up. Eric brings his body forward in the feint, but they're in distance. They're at the Sufeshtin, so it's basically safe. Haha! Now this is unbelievably crisp. This is unbelievably crisp fencing, right? So Josias sees he's bringing his body forward in the feint. He's not committing on those weakening actions. We're in the Krieg. As soon as he begins to weaken, look at this. Look at the reaction time here. So as soon as Eric begins to weaken, look, Josias extends his arms. Right? That's unbelievable reaction time. Right? So he's waiting for that feint. He's like, okay, I'm strong. I know what Eric is going to do. He's going to feint to my right side. Instead of respecting the feint, we're in the Krieg. I'm not going to respect the feint. I'm going to work Indes his Zucken, and I'm going to schießen. And he does. Now, he's not sure what Eric is going to do. So he used that schießen as a provoker. But because Eric he's trying to see what happened here, he's able to bleiben again. Right? So it's Eric's turn right now. He moves to Zucken. Josias responds to the Zucken with a schießen, but he's actually feinting the schießen. He pulls his arms back. Eric does nothing. He says, "Okay, roger that. I go," and I get my hit again. So let's watch that whole thing in sequence. All right, next one. This time, so Josias has done 3 bleiben in a row, right? This is pretty funny here. So now Josias is doing the same thing that I accused Eric of doing earlier, which is that you do a technique, you do a string of techniques, you get a sequence down. You're like, I'm just gonna do it, I'm gonna do this until it doesn't work anymore. And that's really, really effective way of training, right? Again, against a super high level opponent, you do it to them once, they're gonna be cognizant of it, they won't let it happen again. But anytime you can sort of get reps in an environment like this at this level, right, that's totally fine. So here we are. We're fighting for position. Eric strengthens. Josias zuckens. Eric weakens. Josias bleibens. Right? This is textbook. This is right out of the RDL. Right out of the Zettel. Like this is, everyone should watch this and say like, okay, how do I bleiben? Eric strengthens. Josias zuckens. Look at the zucken, by the way. Look at the zucken, and look again. Body is not moving forward, right? That's so important. I cannot stress to you how important that is. So his arms pulled back. His body he's shifting his weight a little bit, but he's not. He hasn't actually. His center of mass actually hasn't moved towards Eric. He's withdrawing his arms. Now, I would say he should maybe get his arms going a little bit earlier here, but really, so it's just like as soon as he sees Eric strengthen, he withdraws his arms. He sees him weaken, shoot the point, boom, right to the face. That's textbook bleiben. I mean, like really, we're gonna stop there. I'll upload the video. You can watch the rest of the exchanges, but I just want to. Well, actually, you know what? We'll just go. We'll go a few more. All right, so let's just watch that exchange. A lot of cool stuff happening here, but stuff that we kind of already talked about, so I'm not going to stress it. We're going to watch this. All right, let's watch, see what happens here. So Josias strengthening. Again, so because he's body first, he starts moving his body before his sword gets going. The thrust really isn't there for him, and neither is the chase. Eric is able to pull, and he gets a thrust on the inside. So he pulls distance. Josias cuts around. He's already Durstwechseln, or Josias doesn't even cut around. He's just Durstwechseln and taken and plow on his right side, and then he's able to get his offense going. So we got more of those same sequences. That's nice. All right, so here we go. So we have a missed thrust. So Josias should have hit this thrust. Again, the reason that Josias' thrusts are so strong, they're going over Eric's right shoulders, because he knows that Eric is going to try and control the bind, and he knows that he needs to be super strong if he's going to work through any pressure from Eric. And so he commits to that side. If he aimed a little lower on the chest, he might have had better luck hitting here. But so he misses the thrust. I don't know why Eric went for this thrust. It probably wasn't the best move on his part. Or maybe he was trying to catch. Oh, I see what's happening. So Eric is strong. Josias frees his point. So Eric loses his position of strength. Eric moves to it looks like he's looking at crossed arm thrust over Josias' point here. So as Josias strengthens, Eric is trying to get a crossed arm thrust going, but Josias Durchwechselns before he's able to get it. And this is, again, why you don't want to commit the body, right? So you could throw the crossed arm thrust, and then if you realize his point is free, you don't have to commit. So now Eric is trying to thrust short edge over Josias' long edge, and Josias has a clean shot to Eric, but in order to clear the line of the shoulder, so that short edge thrust is going to wrap around, Josias has to be a little bit wider, and he ends up not hitting. So now Josias was in the stronger of the positions when they both went up to Kron. And at this point, they're both in Kron. Someone should be working Indes. Looks like they kind of missed their opportunity to work Indes, but there's still the correct action here, which is, come on, say it, tag to the belly. So what happens? Boom. Josias tags to the belly, and he's able to punish Eric for entering distance unsafely. So that's the next one. All right. So here, this is just pretty basic Sufechten into Krieg hitter. So what happens here is Eric begins his thrust just as Josias is moving to Durchwechseln to take. So Eric is strong. Josias recognizes his strength. He moves to weaken against Eric's strength, and Eric is schießening Indes Josias' Durchwechseln, right? And just because he started strong, Josias weakens, Eric immediately schießens Indes. He's able to hit before Josias is able to establish a strong position. Moving on to the next one. And then this will be the last one for today. So this is just, again, this is the foundation upon which all of Liechtenauer's fencing is built. This right here. So watch this exchange, and if you don't know how to fence, this exchange will tell you everything about how to fence. We've talked about how they're fighting for position. And very, very rarely have we seen somebody just win the position and take their offense and hit immediately, because both of these guys are very clear on what they're trying to achieve. All right? So what happens here? We're fighting for position. Eric enters a Krieg. Josias takes in a strong way. Boom. Thrust to the chest. Right? It's that simple. Right? Let's look at it again. Eric is weak in the Krieg. Josias, thrust to the chest. Don't be weak in the Krieg. Do not be weak in the Krieg. And if you're strong in the Krieg, thrust him in the chest. That's it. That's all of Liechtenauer's fencing right here. And everything else that we saw, all the tactics, all of the really interesting exchanges that we saw in this leading up to this, all of that was building up to this moment right here, which is basically, don't be weak in the Krieg, you get thrust in the chest. All right, that's it for me. Thanks, guys.